Trooping the color had survived wars, national mourning, family scandal, and generations of royal change. Yet on this bright ceremonial morning, the parade was brought to a halt by something no military commander had anticipated. Princess Catherine had seen the sapphire choker resting against Camilla's neck, and within seconds, the music faltered, an order passed down the line, and Britain's most disciplined royal spectacle froze under the weight of Diana's memory. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine stopped without warning. Her fingers tightened against her glove as the military band held its rhythm. Trooping the color, the annual military ceremony marking the sovereign's official birthday, had been rehearsed to the second because any delay could signal danger or disorder at the heart of the crown. She understood that stopping it would shake far more than a family gathering. The sapphire choker carried history. Diana had transformed the central brooch into a necklace and worn it in public, turning the piece into a symbol of beauty, loneliness, and defiance. Inside the family, those stones were not simply jewels. They carried grief, inheritance, and wounds that had never fully closed. Catherine looked toward a senior equerry and spoke quietly. "Do not let the carriage proceed." The officer hesitated, saw the certainty in her face, and relayed the order. Princess Catherine had temporarily halted the royal procession after seeing Queen Camilla wearing Diana's sapphire choker without William, Catherine, or the family jewelry custodians being informed. William turned as the band's rhythm broke. He followed his wife's stare, saw the sapphires, and his expression hardened with recognition. Catherine felt fury collide with grief, while the prince understood that the confrontation they had avoided in private had arrived before the nation. Camilla's smile faded when silence spread through the ceremonial line. Her hand rose instinctively to the necklace, and she knew it had been recognized. A documented wardrobe record shown to William revealed that the choker had not appeared on the approved jewelry schedule. Someone had changed the selection after the final review, bypassing officials controlling historically sensitive pieces. Catherine made no public accusation. She insisted that the procession remain paused until the necklace was removed, turning a private wound into a test of royal authority. Inside his carriage, Charles received a handwritten message, read it twice, folded it slowly, and looked toward his wife without speaking. The next decision belonged to him. The parade had stopped because of a necklace, but beneath the sapphires lay three people carrying three different versions of Diana's legacy, and none of them was prepared to surrender. To the crowds outside Buckingham Palace, the choker was a dazzling royal jewel. To Catherine, it represented a woman whose absence had shaped her marriage before it even began. To Camilla, it symbolized entry into a history that had once rejected her. And to William, seeing those sapphires around the Queen's neck was not a fashion choice. It was the return of an old wound in the middle of a day meant to celebrate unity. Catherine stood alone in a side chamber while the parade remained frozen outside. She removed her glove one finger at a time, fighting the tremor in her hands. The Princess of Wales, the title held by the wife of the heir to the throne, had worn pieces connected to Diana before, but always with care. She chose them for weddings, memorials, and family milestones, never as trophies. That restraint mattered, because every jewel linked to the late princess carried public meaning, and one careless appearance could turn remembrance into rivalry. William entered and closed the door behind him. He asked whether she was certain she wanted to force the matter during a national ceremony. Catherine looked at him and answered without raising her voice. She made it public when she stepped into that carriage. Her anger was not about possession. She believed Camilla had taken something tied to grief and worn it as proof that the past had finally been defeated. The prince said nothing at first. He had to protect his wife, honor his mother, and avoid humiliating Charles before the nation. That silence wounded Catherine because she mistook his caution for doubt. Yet the future king was not questioning her pain. He was measuring the cost of every possible choice, knowing that one wrong word could divide his marriage from his father forever. Camilla sat sharply when her dresser explained why the procession had stopped. "It was released for use," she replied, touching the sapphires as embarrassment hardened into defense. The queen, as the sovereign's wife, and the senior royal woman beside him, believed her position gave her access to the collection. But Diana's choker was different. It remained inseparable from a marriage destroyed by betrayal, public pain, and the relationship that eventually placed Camilla beside Charles. The dresser then produced a handwritten authorization card, bearing the seal of the Royal Collection Office, the department responsible for protecting and managing historic royal objects. According to a documented wardrobe account prepared after the delay, the card appeared genuine and had arrived before the final fitting. Its existence suggested planning. Someone had not simply opened a case on impulse. Someone had created a path that allowed the necklace to reach her without William being warned. Charles felt the danger before anyone explained it. If the king ordered his wife to remove the piece, he would appear to place Catherine's judgment above the queen's position. If he allowed her to keep it, he would reopen the deepest wound between himself and his son. He remembered a private recorded conversation from months earlier, when Catherine had warned Camilla that certain pieces connected to Diana must never be worn without William's knowledge. That warning had been spoken behind closed doors during an argument everyone agreed to bury. Now the sapphires had dragged it back into the heart of Trooping the Color, and the decision that caused the crisis had been made 3 nights earlier. The crisis did not begin on the parade ground. It began 3 nights earlier, after most of the palace staff had left and the ceremonial wardrobe had already been approved. In a private dressing room, beneath the guarded calm of royal routine, a locked case was opened after midnight. Camilla looked down at Diana's sapphire choker, touched the central stone, and made the choice that would bring Britain's grandest royal procession to a standstill. Camilla had already been assigned a diamond and pearl necklace for Trooping the Color. The jewelry schedule, a controlled record matching historic pieces to clothing, occasions, symbolism, and family approval, had been reviewed by Catherine's office and William's private secretary. Diana-associated items required even greater care, because one appearance could dominate the ceremony and reopen wounds the palace had spent years trying to contain. The sapphire choker appeared nowhere on that final list. The queen changed everything during the late fitting. She noticed Catherine's planned sapphire earrings on the wardrobe briefing sheet, stared at the page for several seconds, then instructed her dresser to replace the approved necklace. The woman hesitated before opening the secured case, but Camilla did not withdraw the request. As the velvet band was fastened around her neck, she studied her reflection and said quietly, "There cannot be 2 courts inside one family." Those words carried 6 months of resentment. Camilla had previously confronted Catherine in a small Windsor drawing room and requested broader access to jewelry worn by earlier royal women. According to a documented account prepared by a household secretary after that meeting, the princess replied that Diana's personal pieces were not symbols of rank and must never be used to prove seniority. The queen heard caution. She felt rejection. Camilla believed Catherine's popularity had created a rival center of influence around William. She feared becoming a temporary guardian of a crown already moving emotionally toward the next reign. Every cheering crowd around the younger couple deepened that fear, and the choker offered something dangerous, a way to show that history now belonged to her position. Catherine discovered the midnight fitting only after the parade stopped. An anxious dresser produced a duplicate wardrobe card showing the necklace had been added manually after the schedule closed. The princess studied the altered entry, then noticed something worse. The authorization signature, attributed to the Royal Collection Director, did not match examples in the official file. Suspicion hardened immediately. The seal was genuine, suggesting someone had used authentic stationery taken from the director's office. A palace aide then gave a recorded statement confirming that he had seen the locked case moved through a private corridor shortly after midnight. He had been ordered not to record the transfer in the standard log, the written security record used to track valuable royal property. William listened without interrupting. Then the prince asked the only question that mattered. Who ordered the log changed? The aide glanced toward the room where Charles was waiting and lowered his voice. The choker had been chosen as a statement of power, but when Catherine and Camilla were finally brought face to face, the argument would no longer be about who authorized it. It would be about who had the right to carry Diana's memory. Outside, thousands waited for the music to resume. Inside, 4 members of the royal family stood in a room where every breath felt dangerous. Catherine faced Camilla without an aide, private secretary, or ceremonial smile between them. The sapphires remained around the Queen's neck. Then the Princess of Wales spoke 4 words that changed the balance of the room. "You must remove it now." The muffled noise beyond the windows made the silence inside feel even heavier. Charles stood near the fireplace, while William remained beside Catherine, not between the 2 women. The reception room had become a place of judgment, and the prince's position made one truth clear. The Wales household had arrived united. Outside, Trooping the Colour remained suspended, meaning a private family dispute was now holding Britain's most important royal military ceremony in place. Catherine did not look away. She asked Camilla whether she had personally selected the choker after the final wardrobe list was approved. The Queen answered that she had been granted access as the sovereign's wife, and did not need permission from someone lower in precedence. Precedence, the formal order deciding who ranks above whom in royal life, was meant to prevent confusion. In that room, it only sharpened the wound. Camilla lifted her chin as Catherine's grief turned into quiet resolve. The princess said Diana's possessions could not be used to settle questions of status, especially by someone whose history made the meaning impossible to ignore. The Queen's face tightened. She accused Catherine of treating every jewel linked to the late princess as protected ground, and using public affection for Diana to gather power before William had inherited the throne. William finally stepped forward. He told Camilla the necklace was not a crown emblem, but part of his mother's personal story. His voice stayed controlled until the final sentence. "You knew exactly what people would see." The prince's anger was not theatrical. He understood that millions would read the sapphires as a statement, and that interpretation could deepen the oldest fracture between him and Charles. Camilla reached inside a leather folder and placed an authorization card on the table. According to a documented household account created after the confrontation, the card carried the king's initials and the royal collection seal. For one terrible moment, everyone considered the same possibility. Charles had approved the choker in private, and was allowing his wife to face the consequences alone. Charles picked up the card. He studied the initials, turned it once in his hand, then said, "I did not sign this." The king placed it down with such force that the room fell silent. What had begun as a fight over Diana's memory had become evidence of deception inside the royal household. Camilla refused to remove the necklace until the false approval was explained. Catherine answered that the parade would not move while the sapphires remained around her neck. Neither woman stepped back. Charles ordered the doors locked and summoned the keeper of the royal collection, the official responsible for safeguarding historic royal objects. His testimony would decide whether Camilla had been manipulated or whether the authorization had been created for her benefit. Catherine had halted the ceremony, but the power to decide what happened next still rested with Charles, and his verdict would reveal whether blood, marriage, or the crown came first. Charles had spent years trying to prove that love, duty, and kingship could coexist. Now those 3 forces stood against one another. His wife wore the necklace. His son demanded its removal. His daughter-in-law had stopped the sovereign's birthday parade. With the crowd growing restless and the military awaiting orders, the king faced a choice that could not be softened by protocol. Protect Camilla, confront William, or defend the monarchy from both. Charles stepped into the adjoining study and closed the door. For several seconds he stood alone, removed his glasses, and pressed his fingers against his eyes. The forged authorization card lay beside the official parade schedule. As sovereign, the monarch alone held the immediate authority to restart the procession, delay it, or change the royal party. Catherine had created the pause, but only he could decide how it ended. The stakes grew heavier with every passing minute. Trooping the color was more than a birthday ceremony. It represented military loyalty, national continuity, and the promise that the crown remained steady, even when the family behind it was not. A prolonged delay would tell the public that something serious had broken inside the palace, and Charles knew speculation could become more dangerous than the truth. The keeper of the royal collection entered with the disputed card in hand. According to his recorded statement, the seal was genuine, but the signature was not. He then revealed that blank authorization forms had disappeared from his office 2 weeks earlier. A junior aide had noticed the loss but stayed silent, terrified that admitting it would cost him his position. The official continued carefully. The missing stationery had been requested for archival preparation by a member of Camilla's private household. Her senior dresser's name appeared on the request, but the instruction had been given verbally, leaving no formal trail back to whoever truly wanted the cards. Camilla entered and insisted she believed the permission was genuine. Her voice remained firm until Charles asked why she had not mentioned the necklace during breakfast. The Queen hesitated. She said the fitting had ended late and the matter seemed settled. Yet even she heard how weak the answer sounded. William waited before entering the study. When he finally faced his father, the prince chose every word with care. He said this was not about humiliating Camilla. It was about stopping Diana's memory from being used as a weapon against Catherine. The future king warned that silence would make the family appear complicit. Catherine accepted the danger of her own decision. She told Charles she would publicly take responsibility for halting the parade, but she would not withdraw her objection simply to make the ceremony easier. Her resolve forced the monarch to confront what protocol could no longer hide. Charles made his choice. He ordered Camilla to remove the choker, directed the jewelry office to return it to secured custody, and suspended her household's independent access to historically sensitive pieces, pending a full internal review. Camilla unclasped the necklace herself. She placed it in the king's open hand, rather than Catherine's, then walked out without looking at anyone. The sapphires were removed and the parade could resume, but when Camilla returned to public view without them, the silence around her made one truth impossible to escape. The humiliation had only begun. The bands began again. Horses moved. Flags lifted above the avenue as though nothing had happened. Yet when the royal family appeared before the crowd, one detail exposed the truth. The sapphire choker was gone. Catherine stood composed beside William. Camilla smiled from the king's side, but her hand repeatedly touched the bare place at her throat. The ceremony had resumed, while the family beneath it had already changed. Palace officials moved quickly. They described the delay as a brief ceremonial coordination issue, a harmless phrase meant to suggest timing trouble rather than family conflict. The official communications team avoided every dangerous word: jewelry, Diana, confrontation, removal. That caution mattered because trooping the color was designed to project order, and any admission of division would turn a controlled royal event into a national crisis. The cameras made concealment impossible. Early photographs showed Camilla leaving the palace, wearing the sapphires. Later images showed the Queen standing beside Charles with nothing at her throat. Within minutes, broadcasters placed the pictures side by side, and the missing necklace became louder than any statement the palace could release. Camilla left the balcony and entered a small withdrawing room. She closed the door, removed one earring with shaking fingers, and stared at her dresser. No one warned me they would make me stand there after that. The Queen Consort had maintained her smile before thousands, but the humiliation reached her only when the crowd could no longer see. Catherine felt no victory. She leaned against a corridor wall and released the breath she had been holding as William took her hand. The princess knew she had protected Diana's legacy, but she also understood the danger. Critics could portray the halted parade as a calculated display of power, transforming grief into ambition. Charles tried to comfort his wife once they were alone. Camilla asked whether he believed she had forged the authorization. The king answered carefully. He believed she had wanted the choker so badly that she had chosen not to question how permission appeared. His honesty cut deeper than blame, because it exposed the weakness she could no longer deny. The disappearance came next. A documented security report confirmed that Camilla's senior dresser had left the palace immediately after the ceremony. Her phone was switched off, her staff pass lay abandoned on a desk, and a waiting car collected her from a service entrance before the internal review began. Security officers then uncovered something worse. Recorded footage showed the dresser entering the jewelry administration office late at night with a key card assigned to the Queen's deputy private secretary. William read the summary twice. The prince realized this was no longer the work of one frightened employee. Several people inside Camilla's household may have helped place the necklace around her neck. Catherine refused to turn the evidence into a public attack. She told William the investigation must focus on the false document, not revenge against Camilla. Her restraint did not erase the conflict. It made the coming truth more dangerous. Camilla sent a handwritten request to Clarence House before nightfall. She asked Catherine to meet without husbands, secretaries, or advisors. The final line read, "You have heard everyone's version except mine." The first confrontation had been shaped by rank and witnesses, but the next would take place between two women alone, without the crown to protect either of them. There were no uniforms in the room, no private secretaries taking notes, and no husbands prepared to intervene. Catherine entered Clarence House and found Camilla waiting beside a small table with the sapphire choker sealed inside its case. For the first time since the parade stopped, neither woman spoke as a royal figure. They spoke as two people whose lives had been shaped, very differently, by the same absent woman. Camilla had chosen the mourning room because it was private and familiar. Clarence House, the royal residence long associated with senior members of the family, offered distance from the machinery of Buckingham Palace. The curtains were partly drawn, and the sealed case rested between two chairs like evidence neither woman could ignore. The Queen asked that no formal record be made. Catherine agreed, but warned that silence could not erase what had happened inside her household. Camilla spoke first. She admitted requesting access to the choker, but denied ordering anyone to forge Charles's approval. According to a written statement she had prepared before the meeting, the authorization card arrived through her staff and appeared genuine. She accepted it because it confirmed what she wanted to believe, that she had finally been granted equal ownership of royal history. Catherine opened the outer case but did not touch the necklace. She looked at the sapphires and said William still remembered seeing them on his mother. Some objects, she explained, carry more than value. They retain the pain, hope, and memory of the person who wore them. The princess spoke without accusation, but the grief in her voice made the room feel smaller. Camilla lowered her eyes. She admitted that Catherine's popularity unsettled her. The princess could enter a room and receive affection that the Queen had spent decades trying to earn. Wearing the choker had become a way to prove that the past no longer controlled her place beside the king. Yet, as she said it aloud, even she seemed to understand how deeply that choice had failed. Catherine rejected the idea without humiliating her. Diana's memory was not a throne that one woman could win and another could lose. The harm came from treating remembrance as competition, turning grief into a contest of rank. Camilla then revealed the names through a recorded legal statement prepared for the internal review. Her deputy private secretary and senior dresser had arranged the false permission after repeatedly hearing complaints that Catherine's office controlled access to Diana-associated pieces. They believed securing the necklace would strengthen their mistress's position. The Queen signed a statement accepting responsibility for creating the atmosphere that encouraged their actions, even though she denied ordering the forgery. Catherine agreed not to demand her public removal from royal duties. In return, Camilla accepted permanent restrictions on Diana's personal jewelry and agreed that William's written consent would be required for any future use. Camilla slid the sealed case across the table. Catherine did not claim it. She said the choker should return to the family archive under joint protection, shifting the meaning from possession to preservation. Their private agreement ended the personal battle, but by the time they left the room, Britain had already turned the missing necklace into a national verdict on memory, power, and the future of the crown. By the following morning, no official statement could contain what the cameras had captured. Two images appeared side by side across Britain. Camilla arriving in Diana's sapphire choker, then standing on the palace balcony with an empty neckline and a fixed smile. The necklace had vanished in less than an hour. To the public, that disappearance became proof that something extraordinary had happened behind palace doors. Palace officials released a carefully worded statement confirming that the jewelry selection had changed during the event because of family sensitivities. The phrase was meant to calm speculation. Instead, it confirmed that the delay involved private conflict. Royal Communications, the office responsible for shaping official palace messages, had tried to protect the ceremony, but every cautious word only made the silence around the missing choker feel more suspicious. The media split almost instantly. Some commentators praised Catherine as the protector of Diana's legacy. Others questioned whether any royal, even the future queen, should be able to halt a national ceremony over jewelry. The debate mattered because trooping the color symbolized stability, while the missing necklace now suggested that personal grief had broken through the monarchy's discipline. The fictional London Chronicle captured the storm in one front page. Two photographs appeared beneath the headline, "The Choker That Stopped the King's Parade." The first showed Camilla touching the sapphires. The second showed Catherine staring forward, while the Queen stood beside Charles with an empty neckline. That contrast became the image Britain could not ignore. Crowds gathered outside Kensington Palace before midday. They left blue flowers, handwritten notes, and replicas of sapphire jewelry near the gates. One sign read, "Some memories are not costumes." The message spread online because it turned a family dispute into something simple and painful, a warning against wearing grief as decoration. A broadcaster replayed the exact second Catherine stopped walking. He lowered his voice and said, "This is the moment. Ceremony gave way to memory." William watched beside his wife until another commentator accused her of exploiting Diana's popularity. The prince switched off the television. Catherine told him not to respond publicly, warning that anger would deepen the division. Camilla faced the same images alone at Clarence House. She folded the newspaper until only Catherine's photograph remained visible. The Queen felt humiliation, but also acceptance. The public would never view the choker apart from Diana, no matter who wore it or what permission had been granted. The internal investigation delivered its conclusion through a documented palace report. Camilla's deputy private secretary had authorized access to blank stationery, while the senior dresser created the false approval card. Both resigned, and their royal security access was permanently withdrawn. Charles approved a new jewelry protocol requiring written consent from both the sovereign and the Prince of Wales before any piece strongly associated with Diana could appear publicly. Then the palace announced that Catherine and Camilla would attend a remembrance engagement together. The nation had chosen its symbol. The palace had identified those responsible, and only one final appearance remained to prove whether the family had learned from the wound or merely covered it. 1 week after the parade stopped, Catherine and Camilla entered the same memorial hall through the same door. Neither wore sapphires. There was no staged embrace, and no attempt to pretend that the wound had vanished. Yet before the cameras, The Queen paused and allowed the Princess of Wales to step forward first. It was a small gesture, almost silent, but inside the monarchy, everyone understood what had finally been acknowledged. Catherine had arrived with William, but she entered the hall beside Camilla, while he remained several steps behind. The Remembrance Engagement, a royal event honoring families touched by military loss, carried a painful purpose. Both women were expected to comfort others while still carrying the weight of their own unresolved conflict. The prince's distance made one thing clear: this settlement belonged to them, not to the men around them. Camilla stopped beside the memorial book during a private pause. She placed her pen down, looked toward Catherine and said, "It will not be worn by me again." The princess held her gaze before answering. "Then it can remain what it was meant to be. A memory, not a message." Neither woman smiled, but the tension between them finally began to loosen. The sapphire choker was later placed inside a protected family archive. That archive, a secured collection where historically sensitive royal objects are preserved, would now be controlled jointly by the sovereign's collection office and William's household. The necklace could no longer be used to settle questions of rank, succession, or public authority. Its meaning had been separated from ambition. Charles faced his own reckoning. In a documented private conversation, the king apologized to William for allowing competition around Diana's legacy to deepen inside the family. The prince did not pretend the past had disappeared, but he accepted the apology because accountability mattered more than comfort. Camilla also accepted responsibility. She dismissed the officials involved, agreed to the permanent restrictions, and admitted through a signed statement that her need to prove she belonged had blinded her to what the necklace meant to others. The Queen lost none of her title, but she could no longer deny the cost of her choice. Catherine acknowledged her own danger. She admitted that halting the parade risked turning grief into spectacle, yet she maintained that silence would have erased a deeply personal boundary before the entire world. Her intervention had been severe, but it forced the palace to confront what it had tried to avoid. William later visited the secured archive alone. He stood before the closed case and chose not to open it. The future king finally understood that protecting his mother's memory did not require displaying her possessions. It required refusing to let them become weapons. The incident was never truly about which woman had the right to wear the sapphires. It was about whether the monarchy could separate inheritance from ownership, remembrance from ambition, and dignity from silence. Catherine changed palace practice. Camilla ended the contest. Charles restored order. William allowed Diana's memory to remain part of the family without controlling its future. The parade resumed. The crown endured, and Diana's sapphire choker returned to silence, not as a trophy claimed by one woman, but as a boundary finally respected by them all. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.